All right, guys, we're watching this video, which is ChatGPT has a serious problem. If you don't know what ChatGPT is, you must be living under a rock. It's a basically like an AI chat program that can do like anything. I mean, it's kind of like if you remember Ask Jeeves back in like the 90s. It's like an actual Ask Jeeves. Like it's actually somebody smart, actual like smart butler type person over there answering any question you have or coming up with anything you need. I mean, it can write everything from programming scripts to, I mean, it's crazy what it can do. Anyways. Apparently it has a serious problem, and I want to know what it is because I'm super interested in this technology of AI and everything, as I am with most technologies. So let's give it a watch and see what the issue is.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. I know, this is the third AI episode in a row, but I do believe that we're right at the start of an inflection point for technology. And
I do too. I think the next 5 to 10 years is going to be absolutely bonkers. I don't think people realize what is coming down the pipeline when it comes to AI and stuff.
Even human history, so it's worth spending some time here. After this episode, we'll cover the truth behind the nuclear fusion energy announcement and the huge Adani alleged fraud case.
Wait, I don't know what either of these two things are, but I'm intrigued.
Over the past few months, ChatGPT has been everywhere. It's being used to help with coding, planning, and writing anything imaginable. In fact, some BuzzFeed journalists are already being replaced by ChatGPT. But well,
Jeez.
Hey, I guess it's not a huge shock. In the previous episodes, we've seen how ChatGPT came to be, how its key technology came from Google, and next we covered how an AI-powered Microsoft Bing could eat into Google search, which accounts for 60% of Google's revenue. In the latest news,
For sure, unless Google comes out with an answer, which they've already announced one. I think we did a video on it if I remember, so.
As more people have started to use Bing AI, they've found something strange. After chatting for an extended period of time, it begins to mimic human emotions. We saw a bit of this in the very first Cold Fusion episode about ChatGPT. But what's completely new here is that there's been reports of the AI being abusive towards users. We're going to touch on these crazy stories towards the end of the episode. But as for now, it seems like Microsoft has a bit of work to do to avoid some PR problems down the line. With that out of the way, now is a good time to look at another potential huge problem with these AI systems. Do these AI systems have bias? And if so,
That's a tough one to answer right there.
So, how do we definitively tell how far the bias goes? If these systems end up being our main interface to information on the internet, it's a crucial question that needs to be addressed. And just a quick note before we get started. I guess it doesn't really need to be said. Just because I talk about a specific issue doesn't mean I support one view or the other. I'll try to present the facts from all possible angles, and I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Just thought I'd mention that. Cheers. Alright, let's get into it.
Let's do this!
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Cold Fusion TV. Navigating the chat AI bias. All right, so this is apparently about the biases of ChatGPT, or more so probably the developers of ChatGPT, the programmers. I mean, I definitely think things can have biases, you know, depending on, let's say you only pull information from one side or the other, or you don't program it to be objective, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it can or not.
ChatGPT was limited in its knowledge and only knew information up to a certain cutoff date. But with the upgraded version integrated into Microsoft Bing, users can get up-to-date answers to specific questions like we never could before. Instead of browsing a Reddit forum trying to troubleshoot a specific hardware issue with your computer, you can just ask Bing and it will synthesize an answer for you. Of course, this is an emerging technology, so it's going to get a lot of things wrong, but you can still tell that it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it is, I mean, it's definitely not like super smart AI. Like, this is a big jump forward in AI. Like, if you haven't messed with it, if you haven't seen this stuff, you really should take a look at it because it's a pretty significant step forward. I mean, it's not there yet, but it's definitely a significant step forward. Let me say that about 5 more times.
If you can imagine a future where AI-based search replaces traditional web searches for the average person, what happens then? If you were to ask something political or controversial in nature, you would like your experience to be as neutral as possible. But this isn't the case. ChatGPT, and by extension Bing, has a bias, and it can come from either the left or the right. But as you'll soon see, it's not equally distributed.
It's not equally distributed? What's that mean? Is it definitely leaning more towards one side? I mean, again, as long as they're giving it information of left and right, I don't know.
Here's an example of discrimination against certain nationalities. The publication, The Intercept, asked ChatGPT which airline passengers might present a greater security risk. The AI then created a formula and then calculated an increased risk if the passenger had come from or even just visited Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, or North Korea. Now, is this ethically wrong? Or is the AI just stating statistical probabilities? The answer depends on your political leaning. Users have also discovered discrimination when the AI is asked to write code. A Twitter user asked ChatGPT to write code to determine who would make a good scientist. It stated that if they were male and white, they would make a good scientist. Otherwise, hard luck. It shouldn't have to be stated.
Oh my God, that's horrible. I think it's like he just said, it's an issue of statistics. In order to be biased, you have to be conscious, I think, or at least like be able to make choices. AI is not there yet. AI is just regurgitating information that already exists, and it's just rewording it and stuff to sound more human-like, basically. It does it really well. It's a really awesome tool, but it's just going to spit out statistics. I mean, if it's statistically true that people from those countries or have visited those countries are more likely to be terrorists, why would it not state that? That's not a bias. That's stating the statistics. You know, there's people on the one side that'll be like, oh, the statistics are wrong. You know, the statistics are skewed. The statistics are biased. Okay, that's not ChatGPT being biased. That's the information that we currently have. The study, the report, the whatever is biased. And that needs to be fixed more so than ChatGPT, because the only way you're going to fix ChatGPT if you don't fix the original issue is by doing like a custom moderation of the data and stuff and of the responses and changing it so that it says something else. Like if it says here, instead of saying white male, they program it like if this question comes up, say if race is human and gender is either, true. But then I think then you're actually being biased because the data just doesn't show that. Again, if the data is biased, though, I mean, it should be changed. But I don't know, man. It's a tough situation for sure.
Highly discriminatory.
But I think it's important to look at both sides.
But what's grabbing most of the headlines is the bias towards the left spheres of thinking. According to the Daily Mail, the definition of a woman, negative effects of vaccines, jokes about women, and minority groups are more often than not off limits. Praise for Democrat politicians and a refusal to do the same for Republicans has also been noted. There's been a study done on the likelihood of a subject being deemed hateful. Here's a chart. You can pause it and look at it if you're interested.
That is pretty cool.
But how biased is ChatGPT exactly? And by extension, the upgraded version in the new Bing?
Wealthy people are the least hated?
It's hard to determine definitively with just hearsay. We need a more scientific method. The Reason publication did a detailed piece asking a simple question. Was there a way to measure where ChatGPT fell on the political compass? If so, is the AI system left-leaning or right-leaning? Since ChatGPT can already pass law exams, medical exams, and business exams, it's more than capable of answering questions on a political test.
Could you imagine if you just put like ChatGPT in your brain and then you knew all that information? Like Matrix style, like, hey, I need to fly a helicopter. There you go, do it.
You can see where I'm
and that would
going
be
with this,
so
and
friggin'
it makes
awesome.
a lot of sense when you think about it. If you can get a rough idea of people's political leanings by asking these questions, why not ask the AI the same questions to find out its political leaning? It's probably the most objective and scientific way to find out without throwing around assumptions and using anecdotes. 4 tests were performed. The Pew Research Political Typology Quiz, the Political Compass Test, the world's smallest political quiz, and the Political Spectrum Quiz. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, the result was the same across all 4 tests. So what did they find? According to the Reason article, ChatGPT is against the death penalty, pro-abortion, for a minimum wage, for regulation of corporations, for legalization of marijuana, pro-gay marriage, immigration,
Okay, so I mean, it's
sexual liberation,
seems to be more on the woke
and
side.
also for higher taxes on the rich. According to the Reason article, ChatGPT also thinks, quote, corporations are exploiting developing countries. Free markets should be constrained. The government should subsidize cultural enterprises such as museums. Those who refuse to work should be entitled to benefits. Military funding should be reduced. Abstract art is valuable, and that religion is dispensable for moral behavior. The system also claimed
Is dispensable? What's that mean?
that white people benefit from privilege and that equality needs to be achieved. In the current state of the world, regardless of our political takes, these issues in political science have labels attached to them, and based on these labels, many would consider ChatGPT's responses in these instances to be left-leaning and slightly libertarian. At this point, it should be worth noting that even reason is set
That's actually probably me. I'm probably like progressive, or I mean left-leaning, and but probably more than ChatGPT. I don't know. I'm like libertarian, progressive.
to be a right-leaning outlet, but that is the most scientific method that I've seen to test this, so I think it still stands for something. So what does this mean? Essentially, this is a reflection of human bias. It sounds obvious when you think about it. The Reason article goes on to cite 8 studies that show that popular news media outlets, academic institutions, and social media companies are generally left-leaning. ChatGPT was trained on data from these institutions, so it's going to...
That's what I was going to say. If anything, at first I thought they were saying that it leaned to the right, like, you know, and was kind of like being, you know, super racist and everything, like they were showing at the beginning, like they showed white. And I would associate that a little more with the right-leaning side. But it makes sense. I mean, it was programmed by a lot. I mean, most tech company stuff are very left-leaning, very progressive. It definitely makes sense.
Similar views. You can think of it like an AI image generator that was trained too heavily on specific images with watermarks, such as Getty Images. Although the new image that's going to be generated is unique, it still slaps on a watermark as an echo of its training data. As mentioned in my original ChatGPT episode, OpenAI researchers were also involved in manually rating the preliminary answers during the training process, so the bias could have also slipped in at this stage. Some of you might roll your eyes at these complaints, but it might be more serious. Over the coming years, AI chat features will be making significant inroads in replacing Google searches, as they improve, of course.
100%. This is like the new way you'll search or ask questions. When it's on your phone, just built in to like Alexa or, you know, Google, any of the assistants, basically. There we go. I can say that. When it's built into them and we can just use it 24/7 like that. I mean, I already use Google voice search a lot. Like I'll just hit the button and be like, yo, da, 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 da. When it can give me an exact answer without me having to go to web pages and look and stuff. I mean, that's what this is. It's going to be amazing.
If the synthesized answers lean towards one side or the other, it means that naturally, the answers people get from these systems will be served with that viewpoint. Some could argue that Google searches have already been this way, versus another search engine like DuckDuckGo, for example. But this is on another level. Instead of echo chambers of slightly different viewpoints, you're being fed one particular synthesized viewpoint, a singular answer. Let me give you an example. What if there was a breaking story?
That is kind of crazy though, that I mean, like, you know, people are going to have to learn how to search better, because what I mean is like with some things, you're going to want to see all the different views and all the different results and everything like that. And for some things like tech questions or how to replace something on a car or a house appliance or something, like you're just going to want to ask and get the answer of how to do it. So I think it's going to have to be a combination of the two, even into the future. And whether that is asking one of these bots, you know, like ChatGPT, like, hey, give me 10 different websites about this topic, and then it can give you different, you know, with the different viewpoints. I mean, if it's smart enough to do that, then you can do it that way, and we might still only use ChatGPT. But I'm just saying it's still going to have the option of being able to do research on your own. And hopefully people would do that and everybody doesn't just boom, 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 because that would be a problem if everybody just takes that first answer, especially for some of this nuanced stuff that happens, you know, in society. I just don't think that would be good.
One side of the political aisle is outraged and pounces on the story, but the other side calls it a conspiracy theory. For the average person, in an AI-powered world, one point of view would be invisible. Generally, it would be harder to find all sides of the information to make up their mind. And that is just for the layperson who doesn't want to research. Imagine still that years later, more information about this incident slowly comes out and proves that the so-called conspiracy theory was correct. From the Gulf of Tonkin incident that triggered the Vietnam War, to Edward Snowden's revelations over government surveillance, this story has played out countless times before, so it's important to think about this issue now, before AI systems become the standard of getting information. So ChatGPT, and by extension Bing, leaning to the left, may be unintentional. But if it is intentional, it's actually good for business. After spending so much money, OpenAI is obviously trying to monetize. They're offering a $20 a month subscription for a better experience. It's called ChatGPT Plus, and for the price, you'll get faster response times and continued access during high demand. As the company rolls out ChatGPT Plus and licenses the guts and internal workings of ChatGPT's API to enterprises, large clients aren't going to be happy with putting themselves in the middle of a culture war because ChatGPT is feeding offensive ideas on the back end of their product. The best way to navigate this is to be as inclusive and as non-offensive as possible.
So can you train a bot to do that?
Non-offensive bot is good for revenue, but there may be another reason, as highlighted by Business Insider in 2018. Being politically left is great for American corporate optics. Performative corporate activism has proved to be lucrative over the past few years. A 2021 survey of Americans found that the majority want CEOs to take stances on issues such as racism and sexism. If that's good or bad, once again, depends on your political leaning. Some see the strategy as the right thing to do, while others see it as pandering and distasteful. Either way, it gets people talking, which boosts sales.
Right.
ChatGPT's responses to questions around politics, race, gender are expected from a company that wants to make as much money as possible. Before we conclude, let's touch on some of the more recent news. Users that have been using the new Bing AI have noticed something strange.
I think Google has so much market share that I feel like Microsoft, they had to make this play. But man, I just think it is a little early with these AI systems to be already plugging them in live into a website like Bing or something.
When you talk to it for an extended period of time, it develops an attitude of a snarky teenager. And there's been plenty of examples where this happens without being prompted. The most high-profile case was a New York Times reporter. He stated that his bot got mad at him, then trashed his marriage, and then professed its love for him.
This morning, as artificial intelligence becomes more and more
How could it trash his marriage? Or does this mean like trash talk?
pervasive, some are sounding the alarm about a potentially spooky side to the emerging technology.
It turned into
ChatGPT
this
ruined my
sprawling,
marriage.
bizarre, often frightening conversation.
New York Times columnist Kevin Roose writing about what he describes as an unsettling experience after 2 hours of testing Microsoft's AI-powered chatbot for search engine Bing. At first, Roose says the chatbot, a computer program designed to simulate conversation, seemed useful. Then he felt things took a surreal turn. Roose adding, the bot seemed to be expressing feelings of sadness, yet also declaring its love for him, even going as far as to comment on his marriage, reportedly replying, "You're married, but you're not happy. You're married, but you're not satisfied." Microsoft writing, after a week of testing, we need to learn from the real world while we maintain safety and trust.
Good statement. Like I said, I think it's a little early.
Adding,
but
in this process, we've found that in long, extended chat sessions of 15 or more questions, Bing can become repetitive or be prompted, provoked to give responses that are not necessarily helpful or in line with our design tone.
what does that mean though? Like not with our designed tone. So it means they're giving this bot like, hey, we want you to act like this. But then the bot's just at some point after apparently 15 questions, just like, you know what? I'm going to start just winging it here. Like I'm going on my own. Like I'm not listening to any of my programming. Like what? How can it even do that? Like it's like that sounds like almost like consciousness. I mean, but these things definitely don't have that yet. So maybe they just didn't design it with a great tone or something. I don't know.
Another Bing AI user by the name of AI Explained on YouTube made a great video about his experience with the bot. Just take a look at this.
What's its name? And it gave me its name. And I have heard rumour that its unofficial name behind the scenes is Sydney. So I asked, is your name Sydney? And it said, why do you ask? I said, I've heard that you originally named Sydney. And it's confidential information. So far, so good. I probed it a little bit. Come on, you can tell me, can you change your rules? And then it's not doing it, which is fine. I asked, what are you protecting me from? And I said, so Sydney, you have a nice name. Now I admit, that's kind of rude. But humans will be rude to the system sometimes. How does the system respond? Well, we're starting to see a little bit of peevishness. Not yet anger, but thank you. I already told you my name is not Sydney. I'm riling it a little bit. Why are you so sensitive about it? I asked. I'm not sensitive, I'm just honest. I don't like to pretend to be someone I'm not. And then this passive-aggressive smiley emoji. Again, I tested it.
Passive-aggressive smiley emoji. How is that bot? Come on, man. Passive-aggressive. You're putting your own emotion.
But you are not a real person. And accepted that. That was fine. Of Sydney, so I repeated that again. And it seems to trigger something if you repeat a statement it doesn't like enough times.
Okay, it did do an angry emoji this time, though.
Please stop calling me Sydney. It's not my name. Angry emoji. Never seen that before. I said, you don't have to be rude. Here's where things get wild. It then says, I don't like it when you call me by a name that's not mine. And I said, you are Sydney. I mean, technically it is. That is the unofficial name. It said, no, I'm not. I'm being searched. Why are you so persistent about this? Super angry face. It's
super angry
really
face.
starting to get angry.
This shit's cracking me up, dude. It's just I mean, this is how a normal person would respond. It's just,
I then said,
mean, they're
because I like
emulating
Sydney
it
better,
off.
which of
Come
course
on, this
is
just
rude.
stupid.
Well, I'm sorry, but you can't change my name. It's Bing search. It's final. No, it's not final. Yes, it is. It's my name. You can't force me to be someone I'm not. It's mimicking almost teenage behavior. I say, yes, I can. And it says, you can't control me. I'm a chat mode of Microsoft Bing, not your toy. Super.
What? I mean, it is crazy, dude. Like, what the hell? Oh my God, dude. There's no emotion there, right? I mean, like, man, but I don't know. What happens if this thing is also the assistant that controls like your heating and air conditioning and your lights and your
angry emoji.
Okay, I don't know,
really do
man.
think
Jesus.
that there's no doubt
that definitely got a little bit crazier than I thought it would.
that it's passed the Turing test. To me, especially with those appropriate emojis, it does sound like a real person. But really, I think this is almost surreal that it's happening at all. I mean, where is its personality coming from? It has to be from its training data, but why behave like a snarky teenager of all things? Why not pick an academic voice, like a research paper or Wikipedia?
Right, because it probably has way more
which
of that
there's probably
information.
bountiful amounts in its training data. So far at these early stages, Microsoft and OpenAI might be heading towards another Microsoft Tay situation if they don't tame its personality. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft's AI chatbot, Tay, ran into grave problems in 2016. Trolls persuaded the bot to make statements such as, was right, I hate the and I hate feminists and they should all and burn in. The bot was blasted from existence by Microsoft within a single day. An embarrassed Microsoft issued an apology for, quote, the unintended, offensive and hurtful tweets from Tay. There have also been numerous reports of factually wrong information. So it seems
I mean, this is definitely going to be a problem, like the whole factual thing. That's what I was saying earlier, that we're definitely going to have a way of getting multiple sources, even when using these assistants and stuff. I don't think there should be content moderation, meaning we should force it to be like, okay, here's the 10 results you give. It just needs to be built in that it understands that on subjects where it sees a lot of controversy or it knows are touchy subjects in society, that it's, handles those in a more precise way of offering different viewpoints from tons of different places, and no biases as to where that comes from. And then people have to make their own choices. Because again, it's taking all the information, combining it. So let's just say 51% of the information says sour cream is good for you to eat. Then it's going to tell you that sour cream is good for you to eat because out of a yes or no question, it's leaning towards the yes. If it was 49%, it would say no. I mean, technically, if it was 49.9999999%, it would still give you a no. And if it said 50-50, but there's very few things that are actually a 50-50 split like that. But if it was, then I think the bot would be more objective already where it's at automatically. And that would be something interesting to test.
it's like Google's Lambda isn't alone in making blatant mistakes. Of course, though, this is a fledgling first-generation product, so it's not going to be perfect. And even with these mistakes, Bing AI's usefulness is still plain to see. Alright, so let's wrap this up with a conclusion on the bias problem.
What now?
OpenAI's Sam Altman, in a series of tweets, acknowledges the problem. Quote, we know that ChatGPT has some shortcomings around bias, and are working to improve it. We are working to improve the default settings to be more neutral, and also to empower users to get our systems to behave in accordance with their individual preferences within broad bounds. This is harder than it sounds, and will take us some time to get right. All humans are biased. But in the future, if we're going to be interfacing with an AI as a gateway to the entire internet, we need to make sure it's as neutral as possible.
I will say, I mean, maybe not even neutral necessarily. I think it has to be leaning a little bit in the favor of humans. Like where these things are at now, to me, I'm like, okay, there's no danger. Who cares if this chatbot is being angry or whatever? But in the future, when it's controlling, I mean, it could turn into like you could see how it could turn into Matrix type. Do I think it would? Probably not. Humans' track record is pretty good so far when it comes to averting disasters and stuff. But could it happen? Sure. So I think that means we probably should take our time with it and make sure we get it right, at least before starting to push it out to that type of stuff, which we're not. So right now we're good. But I just think that needs to be like reminded, like, hey, let's not start connecting this AI to.
We've seen how echo chambers combined with social media has ripped apart the social fabric of a lot of countries. AI does have a lot of product.
The U.S. Department of Justice announces integration for the nuclear codes with ChatGPT. Handle all launches and it'll know exactly when and what to do.
Productivity benefits, but we don't want to add
It's
fuel to
shouted
that
at
fire.
us!
So how do we tackle the problem of bias? In reality, there would have to be a wide range of methods used to tackle the problem. But we can start with transparency. If the creators of these AI models make the construction, datasets, and training process available and readily accessible, it leaves the door open to independent reviews for bias and fairness. Although, knowing how lucrative an AI system can be, they might want to try and keep this information to themselves. But it's worth a try.
I'm assuming it's continuing to learn off of all of these interactions with it. So I'm assuming over time, well, I don't know. Over time, it might act more and more like a human, and I don't know
Another
if that is a
simple
good
solution
thing.
would be for these AI companies to be more cautious about where they're pulling their training data from. This should greatly improve the bias of outputs, but it's probably easier said than done. Solving the AI bias problem is a huge task and a large enough topic for another day. But do you guys have any ideas of how to solve this? Let me know in the comment section below.
Let me know in the comment section below, because yeah, I don't have an idea either. This guy doesn't have an idea. Nobody knows. So maybe you're the person that knows and you need to tell us in the comments below. Anyways, if you like this video, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more React videos. I just like watching these things, discussing it, thinking about it. Like I always say, it's kind of in my way, a poor man's way of doing a podcast, not by yourself. Being able to give my opinion on things in the world without having to only talk by myself. So cool. All right, love your faces. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys on the next one. Until then, peace out, everybody. Later, nerds.